Welcome to your Scorpio horoscopes for the week of the 21st through the 27th of April. It's the last official week of April. We move into May next week, and the good news is the Mercury retrograde ends this week. I don't know about you guys, this last week was pretty crazy. I just have to say, lots of just so much. I can't even list it all. I don't have time. So much this last week, especially as we got towards the end of the week. So hopefully you guys are faring a little bit better. Interestingly enough, this week, the moon moves into Scorpio on Tuesday. Now, this is the day before the Mercury retrograde ends. And as the moon moves into Scorpio, it moves into opposition with the sun and squared with Pluto, which creates a pretty big challenge, I have to say. So the last day of the Mercury retrograde to move into this humongous challenge is probably not going to be very comfortable for you guys. I'm not going to lie. If it's any consolation to you, Aquarius is involved, so we're in this together to a certain extent. But the moon's focus is very much on the home in opposition with the sun, which is focused on career and career goals. And then we have Pluto, both planets squared with Pluto, which is really focused on transforming your relationships and how your relationships function. Whether your relationships are functioning in a meaningful way, in a helpful way, if they are hindering you, holding you back, supporting you, pushing you forward. We have to do a little relationship inventory every now and then. It's really important to do that, but it's also really unpleasant to do that. And it's these types of challenges and situations that kind of force us to do that inventory, unfortunately, because nobody wants to do it. We really have to be pushed into it. We really have to go through something with somebody that's so incredibly drastic before we just go, okay, enough's enough. I'm not dealing with this kind of stuff anymore. So it is really for your benefit, especially when it's an individual that is deliberately continuing to get in the way of your success. So have a bit of an example of that of two people that I know. One is trying to recover from health issues and running a business. The other is just kind of floating along life, not really doing anything. And every time he has a problem, he calls the other person. And it's a constant distraction. Here I am trying to work, and this person is just like, well, I'm having this problem. I need you to drop everything right now and come deal with me all the time. No warning, no nothing, just me, 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 me. That is a person that's getting in the way. That is a person that doesn't really care if you succeed. They just want you to do what they want you to do so they don't have to do it for themselves. And we tend to see little examples of that through the relationship, and then it blows up. And this challenge is the blow up right here. It's where we cannot ignore that this person is maybe not deliberately getting in the way of our success, but is not doing anything in the relationship to reciprocate what they're taking either. And that's very uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be in a situation where they feel like that, but we all make it there at least once, more than likely multiple times. Now, the challenge as we move to Wednesday and Thursday becomes not quite as big. The moon moves into an opposition with Jupiter and Uranus, which are still also focused on career goals. Well, the moon continues its focus on the home and brings an element of those you love into it as well. So now we're fine tuning this issue here. And I feel like really this is not about your loved ones getting in the way of you being able to be successful in your career. This is actually your career getting in the way of you being able to be there for your loved ones. It's that quintessential, Mom, I have I need a chaperone for our field trip or we can't go, but you just can't get out of those meetings for that day. And it makes you feel terrible knowing that you're letting this person down because you just can't be there. I mean, how many times it breaks my heart to think about how many times I was in that situation myself. It's really difficult to raise a family and to have a career. And unfortunately, you really can't get away from it, right? So I think what's really important here in this situation is that of course the first thing that you're going to go to is obsessing over it and beating yourself up and telling yourself you're a horrible parent or a horrible friend or child or whatever, and almost in an obsessive way, and that's not going to help. Actually, it's going to make it so that you can't focus at that meeting or at anything else that you need to do that's really really important. And to counterbalance this challenge, the moon moves into a trine with Saturn and Mars. And actually, on Thursday, that becomes a grand sextile as they both move into a sextile with Pluto. So, here at the beginning of the moon being in your sign, Pluto was a major part of this challenge, right? Now, Pluto comes in and with a helping hand and says, here, let me help you through that challenge. That's why Pluto is such a badass, you know? And Pluto, again, still focused on relationships, while Mars and Saturn are focused on your responsibility to put your energy into your long-term goals, whether they be career goals, financial goals. Is very specific. Saturn is very specific towards your career goals. So when you look at it, first of all, when you're looking at the scenario of I can't be there for my child on their field trip, you broaden out the relationships that you have. How much family do you have that could go with this child, that could take your place so the child can go and all the other children can go on their field trip? It's in that case not so much about you going as it's about somebody's got to go or we can't go on the field trip. You start to see the people around you that can step in and help out with that, which is really convenient. I was very blessed to have parents and grandparents that did that stuff with my kids because I had to work, unfortunately. And I hated the fact that I missed it, but at least they got to have the experience with those people who more than likely are going to be around for a lot less time in their lives than I am, we hope, right? So it flips it. It instead of feeling like you're failing as a parent, you're actually seeing that you can do the parent role, but it really does take a village to raise a child. So you have people to come in and step in and help with that, which is really good. And that also allows you time to focus on those long-term goals as well, because you basically are tagging somebody in to come in and help you out with that. So rather than, I think what the big lesson here in this is that you can take the time to feel guilty and beat yourself up and you're a horrible person and blah blah blah, whatever. You could do that, but instead of doing that, you could do something productive, something that will solve the problem. And even if you can't personally solve the problem, it changes the entire energy of the situation. So it's a little bit difficult, and especially as it's going through the end of the Mercury retrograde. But it's also really interesting how, like, as almost as soon as the retrograde is over, the very next day, boom, you got a resolution and everything is fine. And you can go about your merry way. You can do your meetings. You can focus on it. You can focus on your wonderful career, whatever it is, right as soon as you get out of the emotional obsession over it. I think that's what it comes down to. So that's what I have for you guys this week, because there's really nothing else influencing Scorpio this week, which is not necessarily a bad thing, considering those 3 days were pretty crazy. You know what I mean? I think that's enough. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys this week. I'm Melissa Bruce, Heavy Metal Psychic. I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys, no matter what you do this week, and no matter how you get through it, make it a great week. No matter what happens. Last week was crazy. It still was a good week because I made it a good week. You have to make it a great week. I'll see you next week.